All right, so I know I'm a couple days late on this, but we got the Game Awards nominees for Mobile Game of the Year here. So I kind of just want to make a video talking about this and giving my thoughts onto the nominees here, as well as who I think is going to be my vote for this, for the Game Awards here. Now, first of all, before we even talk about what's here, let's, just address the elephant in the room real quick, because I am a Honkai Star Rail, mainly, content creator. There's the Hoyoverse game on here, which is kind of crazy on one hand, but on the other hand, I feel like Hoyo has just been there this year. They definitely had some cool stuff with, like, there's some cool things with Amphorius. We had the big ZZZ 2.0 update, which was alright. Probably could have been a little bit of a better release there. And then Genshin is just kind of coasting. And I guess they did have their non-cry update this year, but I guess it just wasn't enough for the Game Awards. So maybe this will be a sort of wake-up call for Hoyo to start doing a little better, because Hoyo has definitely just kind of been coasting because they know how they can make money and not really making like super crazy changes to their games. But enough about them. Let's talk about the nominees here. And actually for each nominee, well, besides Destiny, because it's not on PC, I actually also have the Steam charts pulled up as well, which we'll look into, which I know is not the full player base, but I think it gives a decent idea of at least like a subset of, the player base, because for a lot of these games, I think especially for, I mean, even just all of them, I shouldn't even say especially, they probably are just mostly like mobile players, because people do love to just have a game they can play on the go. But I think seeing Steam charts showing a sort of like percentage can give us a bit of a sort of look into how these games are performing in general here. So the first game that got nominated here is Destiny Rising, which, keep in mind, I only play, of the 5 of them, I only play Umamusume like frequently. I did play Wuthering Waves towards the beginning, and I popped in here and there, but the other 3 games I don't have as much experience on, but I have seen talk about all 3 of them here, so I'm not going to say anything is not worth a nomination on here, but that is the thing I want to keep in mind as I talk here. So firstly, for Destiny Rising, I have seen some pretty alright like overall perception of this game. I wouldn't say it's anything super crazy from what people have been saying, but at the same time, it's definitely not a bad game, and I think a lot of people are enjoying it, which is good. And this is the only one I don't really have player data for here, but it definitely does seem like it's a solid game, but not one that's really going to like stand out. So I definitely don't see it winning. I also just haven't seen like a ton of dialogue about it outside of like a couple tweets here and there that I've seen on Twitter, but definitely seems like a decent game overall. But since we don't have much data, I'm just gonna move on here. Next up, we have Persona 5 The Phantom X, which I know a lot of people were excited about on release because it's Persona. I haven't gotten too much into Persona yet, but I definitely want to. And a lot of people were excited about this game, and if we pull up the Steam charts here, it had a very good launch, because just on Steam, they had 41,000 people. So imagine, mobile as well, for it being a gacha game. This game probably had a pretty solid launch, I would say, in terms of like the player base. But outside of a few like, peaks here and there, it seems like it's had the usual sort of like decline that a lot of games have. And outside of its initial launch, I don't think I really heard anything like particularly about the game afterwards. Like, it was a good game, but it probably just had the typical sort of gacha lifespan thing where if there's not like a super major update to bring people back, you're just pretty much gonna get the people who are playing the game every day, which are the people who are pretty much like saying the couple thousand or so people. And then these peaks are probably whenever like new characters dropped, because it seems to be every like couple weeks or so that we're getting a peak here. So that's probably with like new character releases and maybe like some other like content releases that people who don't play every day are like coming back for. So definitely, interesting there. And Persona is a big series, so like, would I be surprised if it, won the award? Probably not. But I do think that it's nowhere near, in terms of like the hype of the game itself, it's nowhere near a couple of the other options that we have here, which we'll get to. Then the third option here is Sonic Rumble. Now, Sonic Rumble is, I think it's a more recent one as well, and I have not heard very good things about it, both from, people who play a lot of gacha games and mobile games, as well as just people who I know who are just, genuine Sonic fans. So that is already a bad sign. But then when we look at the Steam charts here, this game did not have a very good launch. You see, it dropped literally earlier this month, and on Steam, like, once again, Steam is probably a small subsection of the player base, especially for a Sonic game. But now Steam only having 600 people online right now it's definitely not a good look. This game probably, with also this amount of decrease right away, pretty much going down by a good percentage of the people who were playing the game from launch just in the first couple days. That is not a good look at all for this game here. It is newer, so it is possible that they have an update later on that, you know, may make the gameplay better or fix whatever is wrong with the game. But I don't have as much, you know, information about this game because I just haven't really looked into it too much. But with a launch like this, in comparison to how other games launch, like for example Persona, also being a big series that a lot of people like, they had 41,000 players on Steam, which, and I'm sure even more on mobile. So I just don't think this game really, like, you know, stuck the landing in terms of its launch. So I don't think it's gonna win at all. But it is cool that Sonic at least tried a mobile game, and hopefully they can make it better, because I feel like that'd be cool. And then next up is a game that I'm actually very happy that it made it here, is Umamusume Pretty Derby. I was actually not sure if this would get nominated, not because it didn't have like a crazy success, which once we pull up the charts in a second here, it absolutely did, but it's because this was the release of specifically the global server that happened this year, because the JP server has been out since I believe 2021. So it's technically not a new game, but for a lot of people it is. So I'm glad they were able to get it nominated here. And of all the games here, both Umamusume and then Wuthering Waves, which we'll talk about afterwards, are probably the two biggest contenders for this award here. And Umamusume was just like a crazy launch because not only were people in the gacha scene playing it, there were just like regular like streamers that were like trying the game and enjoying it, having a good time. Like regular streamers who like, they game but they don't play like gacha games, they're not in the gacha space. And we can see that with how Umamusume has done since, you know, its launch here. So at launch, it wasn't too crazy at first, but then it kind of got put on the map, and it sustained tens of thousands of players for a while, and it peaked not day one like all these other games here. It peaked almost a month into its, you know, lifespan because of a certain support card release here for Kida-san Black. But then after that, it sustained multiple thousands of people on Steam alone, which you can only imagine what that means for mobile as well. Plus, they did have a major update recently, which also brought people back, pretty much doubling on some days the average sort of player base that the game had for the past couple months. So that is really good as well. So if they keep having, you know, major updates, and just the franchise itself just has a very good appeal, I think Umamusume has a very strong chance of winning this. And I honestly would like to see it win because it's the gacha game that I've enjoyed probably one of the most this year. I think the only other like contender for 2025 gachas that I really enjoyed was Chaos Zero Nightmare, but that one's not on the nominations here. But overall, like, this game is still doing very well, and I think it's very deserving of that award here. But then finally, we have Wuthering Waves, which I low-key had a misconception about the Game Awards for this category, where I thought it was just games that dropped this year. But both with Umamusume and also Wuthering Waves, that is not the case at all. It's the games that are the most prominent in the year, which I guess does make sense. So Wuthering Waves being nominated again here is very cool. Now, I played Wuthering Waves at launch, didn't really vibe with like open world stuff that much, so I ended up not playing it, but I popped in here and there. I've loosely kept up with like what's been going on in Wuthering Waves because I do have a friend that plays it pretty frequently, so I do keep up with it a decent amount. And Wuthering Waves did get put on Steam as of version 2.3. And with Steam here, Wuthering Waves is a bit of a weird case because it has their own launcher, they have Steam, they have mobile, they have console, so there's a lot more fragmentation for Wuthering Waves than the other games in terms of the overall player base. But pretty much for Wuthering Waves, I think what we see here is going to be, even though it's a fraction of the player base, it is going to be a pretty similar, like, you know, spikes, you know, peaks and valleys over here. Because every version update, which are these little markers here, you have a spike, and then a bit after the update it goes down, and then when the next update happens it spikes up, depending on the amount of hype for the version. So Wuthering Waves has just consistently been doing very well, and Kuro definitely has listened to a lot of stuff from the player base, which is very good. So I definitely, you know, see it being a very strong contender for this award here. And that is really good to see as well, especially with how like the original launch for Wuthering Waves happened, which we don't have player data of here because that was before it was on Steam. but a lot of people were playing Wuthering Waves mainly because it was supposed to be the sort of like better Genshin. And maybe like it was at first it was supposed to be a bit darker, but they ended up kind of like toning it down a little bit, which sucks. But Wuthering Waves is in a pretty good spot here, and they are approaching well, they're about to drop 2.8, and after that they're going to be approaching 3.0, which is going to be another big time for Wuthering Waves. So a lot of people are pretty excited for what's to come for this game as well. So yeah, I think that pretty much cements Wuthering Waves and Umamusume as the two biggest nominees here. But for my personal vote, I feel like I gotta go with what I've been enjoying the most. I gotta pick Umamusume, right? I gotta pick Umamusume. It's just been such a fun game, and I made like a little bit of content of it here and there, but it's been so fun. It's just like a casual experience, because I know you can get super sweaty with it, but playing it just on my free time, just whenever, has been super fun for me. So we are gonna vote for that there. But that is going to be it for me for this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below about the mobile game of the year, as well as anything else for the Game Awards here. I probably won't be streaming like a reaction or anything like that to it, but I'll definitely be watching. We'll see if we get any kind of like gacha news, because especially like with Wuwa 3.0 upcoming, I feel like that would be a pretty good time for that. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.